It's essentially the conduit washers that we picked up from Lowe's a few days ago. Again, these things are really cheap. They're 50 cents for two, and they are a little stepped, which is kind of cool. Kind of gives a conical shape to the nut, the surface, to kind of help center the actual nut that the switch comes with, and it actually makes it aesthetically nice to look at. Now, I am planning on either painting or powder coating this hardware eventually. Maybe for the show I might just make it black so it's not as visible, but honestly I really don't care. You really can't see this, and since this surface will be rubbed against back and forth, I may not even paint it at all. So essentially how I got the measurements from this was kind of crude, not a lot of science or math behind it, but in order to show you how I got this measurement here to where I can place this, I'll show you on the Bashbar. Alright guys, so the placement on here was not exactly on random, but because this actual beam right here is perpendicular, or this beam right here is perpendicular to the actual bumper. It's integral to that one part of the bumper that's designed to kind of house the bumper grill. That means that right here is a pretty safe bet, and this general area right here is a pretty safe bet to make our mounting surface. So what I did on the other side was make sure that I was on the conical side here, closest to the actual weld side, and I used this punch tool, and I kind of just chanced it. So yeah, I wish I had a little more scientific explanation for how I came up with this position on this other side, but that's pretty much what I did. So what I'm going to do my very best to do is kind of eyeball it on the other side, and for those of you guys doing it yourselves, you could probably come up with a better solution on how to make both sides congruent, but for me this is probably going to work out just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and make a little punch right here to make sure that we get the proper alignment for the hardware for the switches. So if you notice here, I actually did use more of the hardware that I came with the kit. And that's because on this side here, I think it'll be subject to more forces that could possibly pull it off, and I felt like it needed a better mounting surface. Now, for the ones on top, I'm considering tack welding them into place, but eventually I'll have to have a professional do some TIG welding around those actual hardware pieces, the little conical joint pieces, to make sure they look aesthetically pleasing, so they can at least match the beautiful welding done here by the guys that designed the ZWING bar. But for now, in order to keep the ones on top still, I'll probably just tack weld them into place. This one here will be just fine by cinching down this 10mm nut against the hardware to keep it still. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and we should be in good shape. As you can see here, the hardware is poking down just about the same as the driver's side on this side over here. Again, if it's not exactly the same, we can adjust it by threading it in slightly more. But this should be in a relatively good place for us to complete this. So the next step is getting the bumper on here, kind of tracing the area around the conical part of the hardware. Then we're going to drill out a tapered hole in the bumper, and that should put us where we need to be. Gonna first start off by we're gonna kind of butcher another kit. So it's a good thing that I bought a actual set of 10. We need this this nut right here, and we're going to use it on the other switch. Now, as you can see, this switch here, this is already geared up and ready to go for the under mounting point. So we're going to use the conduit washers that we used before. We use the conical side here, and we're going to place this underneath the bumper. And we're going to take this nut here, use the other conduit washer, and use this nut on top. And it should leave us with a very shallow mounting surface like on the driver's side.